Captain Thorne Mercer stood at the observation deck of the Terran diplomatic vessel Horizon, watching the swirling blue-green atmosphere of planet Viridian as they approached the orbital station. His weathered face reflected in the reinforced glass, the lines around his eyes deeper after 15 years of interstellar diplomatic missions. "Captain, the Viridian Diplomatic Authority has cleared us for docking," announced Lieutenant Patel from the communication station. "They've requested you prepare for immediate engagement with the Viridian ambassador." Thorne nodded, straightening his formal Navy uniform with gold trim that marked him as Earth's senior diplomatic escort. "Any special protocols I should be aware of?" Patel's eyes widened slightly as she read from her screen. "Yes, sir. The ambassador is special. The briefing states she carries what they call the luminous burden. Under no circumstances are you to make physical contact with her. Not even accidental." "Radioactive?" Thorne asked, raising an eyebrow. "No, sir. The briefing is vague, but it mentions something about an energy field that's incompatible with other life forms. They're sending a full protocol package now." Thorne frowned. In 15 years of diplomatic missions, he'd encountered many strange alien customs, but this seemed excessive even by galactic standards. The Viridians were notoriously secretive about their biology, having joined the Galactic Concord only 30 years ago. "Tell them I understand and will comply with all protocols," he said, turning toward the exit. "I'll be in the ready room preparing." 3 hours later, Thorne stood in the pristine white reception chamber of Viridian Station Alpha, surrounded by the tall, slender forms of Viridian officials. Their iridescent skin shimmered with patterns of light that seemed to communicate as much as their words. The officials created a wide path as a figure entered the far end of the hall. The Viridian ambassador was unlike any alien Thorne had encountered. Her skin was a deep midnight blue, covered with swirling patterns that resembled galaxies. Her eyes were large, with vertical pupils set in irises that shifted between silver and violet. But most striking was the faint aura that surrounded her body, a shimmering field that distorted the light around her. "Captain Mercer, I am Ambassador Navarra," she said, her voice melodious but formal. "I welcome you to Viridian Station Alpha. I trust your journey was comfortable." Thorne bowed respectfully, maintaining the 3-meter distance specified in the protocol. "Ambassador Navarra, I bring greetings from Earth and the Terran Alliance. Our journey was excellent, thank you." Navarra inclined her head, the galaxy-like patterns on her skin pulsing gently. "You've been briefed on the special circumstances of our meeting?" "I have, Ambassador. I understand physical contact is to be avoided at all costs." A slight smile touched her lips. "Excellent. Few off-worlders understand the importance of this protocol. The luminous burden I carry makes physical contact fatal to others. My energy field would cause immediate cellular disruption in any other living being." Thorne couldn't help his scientific curiosity. "Has it always been this way for you?" "I am one of the marked ones," Navarra explained as she gestured for him to follow her down a corridor, maintaining their distance. "Born once every 10 generations to serve as keepers of our most ancient knowledge. The energy field is both our blessing and our isolation." As they walked through the station's crystalline corridors, Thorne noticed how other Viridians created a wide berth around Navarra. Their expressions showed reverence, but also unmistakable fear. "The Terran Alliance is honored by your willingness to negotiate directly," Thorne said. "The mineral rights to the Caladron system are important to both our peoples. The Council believes this alliance could benefit both our species," Navarra replied. "Though some traditionalists oppose any cooperation with." A sudden explosion rocked the station, cutting off her words and throwing Thorne against the wall. Warning sirens blared as emergency containment fields activated. Through the haze of smoke, Thorne saw 3 figures in dark environmental suits entering through a breach in the outer wall. "Purists," one of the Viridian officials shouted before a beam of energy struck him, turning his body to ash in seconds. The attackers moved with precision, eliminating the security personnel before turning toward Navarra. Their weapons hummed with an ominous energy as they advanced. "Ambassador. Thorne shouted, instinctively reaching for the standard issue stunner at his hip. It would be useless against their advanced weaponry, but it was all he had. "Stay back, Captain," Navarra commanded, her voice sharp with authority. "They want me, not you. This is internal Viridian politics." One of the attackers raised his weapon. "The Marked One must not share our secrets with the Dirtwalkers. The ancient balance must be preserved." As the attacker fired, the beam struck a support column near Navarra, causing a cascade of crystalline debris. A large shard struck an overhead conduit, rupturing it and releasing a stream of coolant gas directly above the ambassador. Time seemed to slow as Thorne saw what was about to happen. The supercooled gas would hit Navarra's energy field, potentially causing a catastrophic reaction. His training, his orders, and every diplomatic protocol told him to stay away. But 15 years of diplomatic missions had taught Thorne one crucial lesson: sometimes rules existed to be broken. He lunged forward, crossing the distance between them in 3 strides. The attackers, surprised by his movement, hesitated for a crucial second. Thorne reached Navarra just as the coolant began to descend, wrapping his arms around her slender form and pulling her clear of the deadly spray. The moment his skin touched hers, Thorne expected pain, expected death. Every muscle in his body tensed, waiting for the cellular disruption Navarra had described. Instead, a strange warmth flowed through him, like electricity but somehow alive. The galaxy patterns on Navarra's skin brightened intensely, and her eyes widened in shock. "Impossible," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You should be dead." The attackers had frozen in place, their weapons lowered in apparent disbelief. Even through their environmental suits, Thorne could sense their confusion. "The prophecy," one of them said, voice filled with awe and horror. "The star-touched one." Navarra stared at Thorne, her vertical pupils dilated with shock. "Who are you, Captain Mercer?" Before he could answer, the station's security systems engaged, filling the corridor with a sweeping grid of energy that targeted the attackers. They retreated through the breach they had created, but not before one of them pointed at Thorne. "The Council will know of this abomination," the attacker called out. "The balance is broken." As they disappeared, Thorne became acutely aware that he was still holding Navarra, their bodies pressed together in defiance of everything he had been told. The warm, electric sensation continued to flow between them, creating a connection that felt ancient and somehow familiar. "Captain," Navarra said, regaining her composure but making no move to break their contact, "do you understand what you've done?" Thorne shook his head, still processing the fact that he was alive. "I just reacted. I couldn't let you die. No human should be able to touch me and live," she said quietly. "In the 1,000 years since the marking began, no one has survived contact with a Marked One. No one except you." Around them, the remaining Viridian officials were keeping their distance, their skin patterns flashing in what appeared to be alarm or distress communication. "What does this mean?" Thorne asked. Navarra's expression turned grave, her galaxy-like patterns swirling faster. "It means, Captain Mercer, that everything we believed about the luminous burden may be wrong. And it means the Council will now see you as the greatest threat to our way of life in 10 generations. Warning klaxons continued to sound through the damaged station as emergency teams rushed toward them. But in that moment, standing in the wreckage with Navarra still in his arms, Thorne realized this diplomatic mission had just become something far more dangerous, and far more important. In breaking the most fundamental rule of Viridian contact, he had inadvertently challenged the foundation of an entire civilization. And there would be no going back. Bound by the impossible. The secure chamber deep within Viridian Station Alpha hummed with nervous energy as medical personnel and security officers maintained a respectful distance from Captain Thorne Mercer and Ambassador Navarra. The two sat facing each other across a narrow table, the unprecedented physical contact between them having sparked a diplomatic crisis unlike anything in recent galactic history. "The scans confirm it," said Chief Medical Officer Jane, her dark eyes wide with amazement as she studied her datapad. Captain Mercer's cellular structure is somehow resonating with the ambassador's energy field rather than being disrupted by it. It's as if they're speaking the same language at a quantum level. Navara's galaxy-like patterns pulsed with increasing intensity as she stared at Thorn. In all our recorded history, no being has survived direct contact with a marked one. You should be Ash, Captain, yet here you sit. Thorn flexed his fingers, still feeling the lingering warmth from their contact. I don't understand it either, Ambassador. But clearly everything your people believe about the luminous burden isn't entirely accurate. The Council will not see it that way, Navara said, her melodious voice tight with concern. They will view this as a threat to the natural order. Our entire society is structured around the isolation of the marked ones. Lieutenant Patel entered the room, her usual composed demeanor fractured by obvious tension. Captain, we're receiving multiple communications from Viridian authorities. They're demanding we surrender you into their custody for examination. Thorn straightened. On what grounds? They're claiming you've interfered with sacred Viridian biology and violated 37 different protocols, Patel replied. The Terran Alliance Diplomatic Corps is requesting we comply to avoid an interspecies incident. They'll dissect you, Navara said bluntly, her vertical pupils contracting to thin lines. The Luminous Council doesn't seek understanding, they preserve the status quo. For generations, they've maintained power through the myth of the untouchable marked ones. A sudden commotion outside the chamber drew everyone's attention. Through the transparent wall, they could see a delegation of Viridians in ceremonial attire approaching, flanked by security personnel carrying specialized containment equipment. The High Counselors themselves, Navara breathed, her skin patterns shifting to darker hues. They never leave the surface. This situation has escalated beyond anything I anticipated. Thorn turned to Lieutenant Patel. How long until the Horizon can be ready for emergency departure? Patel's eyes widened, understanding the implications. 20 minutes, minimum. The docking clamps are still engaged, and we'd need to bypass station protocols to do it, Thorn ordered, his voice leaving no room for argument. And prepare for 2 passengers. Captain, Navara interjected, are you suggesting we flee? That would violate every diplomatic agreement between our peoples. Thorn met her gaze steadily. Ambassador, I've been in enough diplomatic crises to recognize when negotiation is no longer an option. Those counselors aren't coming to talk, they're coming to remove evidence of something that challenges their power. He turned back to Patel. Lieutenant, initiate Protocol Starfall. Authorization Mercer 7 Delta 9. Patel paled but nodded sharply. Yes, sir. Starfall initiated. As she hurried from the room, Dr. Jane approached cautiously. Captain, before you do anything drastic, you should see this. She handed him her datapad, which displayed complex readings of both his and Navara's biological patterns. These energy signatures are becoming increasingly synchronized. Whatever connection was established when you touched is growing stronger. Thorn studied the display, though the advanced xenobiology was beyond his expertise. What does this mean in practical terms, Doctor? I don't know, Jane admitted. But based on these readings, I wouldn't recommend separating the two of you until we understand more. There could be consequences. The door to the chamber slid open, and Chief Security Officer Bellamy entered, his hand resting on his sidearm. Captain, Viridian security forces are overriding station protocols. They'll be through the outer defenses in minutes. Dr. Jane, you have 5 minutes to gather whatever equipment you need to continue monitoring our condition, Thorn ordered. Bellamy, we need a path to docking Bay 7 that avoids the main corridors. Navara rose gracefully to her feet, her flowing diplomatic robes shifting like liquid night around her slender form. Captain Mercer, what you're proposing is essentially kidnapping a Viridian ambassador. It could lead to war. With respect, Ambassador, Thorn replied, those counselors weren't coming to escort you home for a celebration. They were bringing containment equipment designed for your kind. He gestured to the approaching delegation visible through the transparent wall. Whatever is happening between us terrifies them, which means it threatens their power. Navara's skin patterns flashed in what seemed like uncertainty, then resolved into a steady, determined glow. There is a prophecy among my people. One that the council has suppressed for generations. About a marked one who would find their opposite, their complement, among the stars. One who could touch the untouchable and unlock the true purpose of the luminous burden. And you believe that's me? Thorn asked skeptically. I believe the council fears it might be, she answered. And that is reason enough to hear what you propose. The station's security alert suddenly escalated to maximum, bathing the chamber in pulsing red light. Through the transparent wall, they could see the counselors quickening their pace, their elaborate ceremonial attire flowing behind them as they hurried forward, flanked by security forces now openly carrying weapons. Decision time, Ambassador, Thorn said, extending his hand toward her. Navara looked at his outstretched hand, then at the approaching counselors. The galaxy-like patterns across her midnight blue skin whirled in what appeared to be intense internal conflict. If we leave, she said quietly, there is no return for me. I will be branded a traitor to my kind. Sometimes the hardest choices are the only ones worth making, Thorn replied. After a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, Navara reached out and placed her slender hand in his. The moment their skin touched, the connection between them flared visibly, a soft azure glow that enveloped them both. The maintenance tunnels will get us to Bay 7, Bellamy said, moving to a concealed panel in the wall and entering a security override. The panel slid aside, revealing a narrow service corridor. But we need to move now. As they hurried through the hidden passageway, the station's artificial gravity fluctuated momentarily, a sure sign that security protocols were being manipulated at the highest levels. Behind them, they could hear the frustrated shouts of the counselors as they discovered their quarry had escaped. The prophecy speaks of a joining of energies that would unlock ancient knowledge, Navara explained as they ran, her hands still clasped in Thorn's. Knowledge from before our species retreated into isolation. Before the marking began. What kind of knowledge? Thorn asked, guiding her around a sharp corner as Bellamy led the way. The truth about what we really are, she said enigmatically. The Council has maintained for generations that the luminous burden is a sacred gift, a mark of our spiritual purity that requires isolation and reverence. But you don't believe that, Thorn observed. I've had doubts, Navara admitted. Fragments of ancient texts suggest the marking wasn't always a burden. That it once served a different purpose, one connected to the stars themselves. They emerged into a secondary corridor near the docking bays, only to find their path blocked by a squad of Viridian security forces. The officers raised their weapons, the leader stepping forward. Ambassador Navara, by order of the High Council, you must relinquish yourself and the human into official custody. Thorn felt Navara's hand tighten around his. To his astonishment, the glow between them intensified, and he felt a surge of energy unlike anything he had experienced before, as if every cell in his body was suddenly more alive, more aware. Stand aside, Navara commanded, her voice carrying an authority that seemed to vibrate the very air. I invoke the ancient right of the marked ones to choose their own path. The security officers hesitated, their weapons wavering. The leader's skin patterns flashed in what appeared to be uncertainty and fear. The Council has rescinded all such rights, he finally said, though his voice lacked conviction. Please, Ambassador, do not force us to take action. Thorn felt a strange certainty rising within him, knowledge he couldn't possibly possess flooding his consciousness. He raised his free hand toward the security officers, and to his astonishment, a pulse of energy emanated from his palm, not harmful, but disorienting enough to send the officers staggering back. What just happened? He asked, staring at his hand in shock. The connection is growing stronger, Navara whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. The prophecy spoke of shared abilities, shared consciousness. They used the moment of confusion to push past the disoriented officers, Bellamy leading them the final distance to docking bay 7 where the Horizon waited, its engines already coming to life. As they rushed up the boarding ramp, the massive docking bay doors began to close, an attempt by station control to trap them. Lieutenant Patel's voice came over the comm system, "Captain, we need to leave now or we're not leaving at all." Thorne looked back at the station that had, just hours ago, been the site of a hopeful diplomatic mission. Now it represented something else entirely, the beginning of a journey neither he nor Navarra had anticipated. "Take us out, Lieutenant," he ordered as the ramp sealed behind them. Full emergency protocols. As the Horizon broke free from its docking clamps and accelerated away from Viridian Station Alpha, Thorne turned to Navarra, their hands still joined, the mysterious energy still flowing between them. "I hope you know more about this prophecy," he said quietly. "Because I think we just started a galactic incident." Navarra's vertical pupils dilated as she gazed at the stars now visible through the viewports. "The prophecy says the joining will lead to the heart of stars, the place where my people's true history began. Before the council, before the marking." "And where exactly is that?" Thorne asked. "That," Navarra said, her galaxy-like patterns swirling with renewed intensity, "is what we need to discover. Together." The Horizon cut through the darkness of space, its engines pushed beyond recommended parameters as it outran the pursuing Viridian vessels. On the bridge, tension hung in the air like a physical presence as Captain Thorne Mercer studied the tactical display. "The diplomatic cruisers are falling back," Lieutenant Patel reported, relief evident in her voice. "But long-range sensors show 3 Viridian warships have been dispatched from their home system. Estimated intercept in 7 hours. Thorne nodded grimly. "They're taking this even more seriously than I anticipated." He turned to Navarra, who stood beside him, her midnight blue skin glowing faintly in the dimmed bridge lighting. "Those aren't diplomatic vessels. The Council is bringing military assets into play. The Luminous Council has maintained power for 15 generations through control of information," Navarra said quietly. "What's happening between us threatens everything they've built." "Dar." Jane approached, her medical scanner humming as she passed it over both of them. "The quantum resonance between you continues to strengthen. Your biological patterns are harmonizing at a cellular level, something I wouldn't have believed possible between different species. Can you determine what's causing it?" Thorne asked. Jane shook her head. "It's beyond our current understanding of xenobiology. But..." She hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with what she was about to say. "Captain, there's something else. Your DNA is showing subtle changes, adaptations that appear to be allowing greater compatibility with the ambassador's energy field." Thorne felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you saying I'm being transformed?" "Not exactly," Jane clarified. "It's more like dormant sections of your genome are being activated, sections that, frankly, shouldn't exist in human DNA. It's as if..." She trailed off, struggling to articulate the impossible. "As if they were waiting to be awakened," Navarra finished for her, her vertical pupils dilating with excitement. "Just as the ancient texts described." Thorne moved to the star chart displayed on the main view screen. "You mentioned a place called the Heart of Stars. Do you have any idea where it might be located?" Navarra joined him, studying the map with intense concentration. Her slender fingers traced constellations unknown to human astronomy. "The forbidden histories speak of a system beyond the Crimson Nebula, where the first marked ones discovered the source of the luminous energy." "The Crimson Nebula is at the edge of charted space," Patel noted with concern. "Nearly 3 weeks' journey at maximum sustainable speed." "We don't have 3 weeks," Thorne said grimly. "Those warships will catch us long before then." Navarra's skin patterns shifted, forming complex geometric shapes that seemed to mimic the star patterns on the display. "There may be another way." She placed her palm against the screen, and to everyone's astonishment, the energy field surrounding her interfaced directly with the ship's systems. The star chart zoomed and shifted, focusing on a region of space that appeared empty on their sensors. There, she said with certainty. Ancient pathways exist in the fabric of space, corridors created by my ancestors when they still remembered their true nature. Slipstreams? Thorne asked, recognizing the concept from theoretical physics. Stable wormholes that connect distant points in space. My people call them the veils of light, Navarra explained. The Council restricted knowledge of them centuries ago, claiming they were too dangerous for common use. In truth, they feared what might be discovered if people could travel beyond their control. Chief Engineer Russo's voice came over the comm, his Italian accent thickened by stress. Captain, something's happening to the drive systems. The quantum core is evolving somehow. New configurations are appearing in the matrix that weren't in the original design. Is it dangerous? Thorne asked sharply. That's the strange thing, sir, Russo replied. These modifications are actually improving efficiency by nearly 300%. It's as if the ship is being upgraded by some external intelligence. Thorne looked at Navarra, whose hand still rested on the console, the energy field around her pulsing in rhythm with the ship's systems. Ambassador? I'm not controlling it, she said, her voice filled with wonder. It's the connection between us. Somehow it's accessing knowledge I never knew I possessed, ancient technologies my ancestors once commanded. The Horizon wasn't designed to detect or navigate slipstreams, Patel pointed out. It is now, Navarra replied with quiet confidence. The modifications will allow us to perceive the veil nearest to our position. But opening it. She turned to Thorne, her eyes reflecting the starlight. That will require both of us, together. Over the next hour, the bridge crew watched in amazement as Thorne and Navarra worked in perfect synchronization, their movements mirroring each other as if choreographed. The energy field that had once surrounded only Navarra now encompassed them both, pulsing with increasing intensity as they interfaced with the ship's systems. Approaching the coordinates, Patel announced, her voice hushed with awe. But sensors show nothing but empty space. It's there, Thorne said with unexpected certainty. Knowledge that wasn't his own flowed through his consciousness, understanding of spatial mechanics and dimensional folding that went far beyond current human science. We just can't see it yet. He and Navarra stood side by side at the main console, their hands hovering over the controls. As their fingers intertwined, the energy between them flared brilliantly, bathing the bridge in azure light. Now, Navarra whispered. They pressed their palms against the console simultaneously, and the ship shuddered as if struck by an invisible wave. Ahead of them, space itself seemed to ripple and fold, revealing a swirling vortex of light where empty void had been moments before. The veil opens, Navarra said, her voice taking on an almost reverent quality. After 500 years, a marked one once again commands the ancient ways. Helm, take us in, Thorne ordered, his voice steady despite the extraordinary circumstances. Full power. The horizon surged forward, entering the swirling vortex. The normal view of stars was replaced by streams of light that twisted and flowed around the ship like luminous rivers. The vessel shuddered but held together as it was propelled through the corridor at speeds that defied conventional physics. Dr. Jane's medical scanner beeped insistently as she monitored Thorne and Navarra. Captain, your physical integration is accelerating. The energy patterns are reaching critical mass. Thorne could feel it, a transformation taking place deep within his cells, as if ancient machinery was being activated after millennia of dormancy. Beside him, Navarra's galaxy-like patterns swirled with increasing complexity, forming symbols and equations that seemed to write themselves across her skin. What happens when we reach the heart of stars? Thorne asked, feeling as though they were hurtling toward a destiny neither of them fully understood. Truth, Navarra replied simply. The forbidden histories say it holds the truth about what the marked ones were meant to be, before the Council turned our blessing into isolation. The ship emerged from the slipstream with a final shudder, systems momentarily fluctuating before stabilizing. As the view screen cleared, a collective gasp rose from the bridge crew. Before them hung a massive crystalline structure, an intricate latticework of translucent material that spanned thousands of kilometers. It orbited a small, dense star that pulsed with rhythmic bursts of energy, each pulse sending waves of light through the crystalline structure. "That's not natural," Bellamy murmured, staring at the impossible construction. "No," Navarra agreed, her voice filled with emotion. "It's the Nexus, the ancestral home of my people before the Great Separation. The place where the first marked ones learned to harness the energy of the stars themselves." Thorne studied the structure, feeling an inexplicable sense of recognition. "It's been abandoned for centuries, based on the stellar drift patterns. Why did your people leave?" "The histories are fragmented," Navarra explained, her eyes fixed on the ancient structure. "They speak of a schism, those who believed the luminous energy should be shared with all species, and those who feared its power would be misused. The isolationists won, led by the First Council. They returned to Viridian, restricting the marking to only a chosen few, ensuring the power remained controlled. And turned what was once a gift into a curse of isolation," Thorne concluded, understanding dawning. Patel interrupted their contemplation. "Captain, sensors are detecting multiple Viridian signatures emerging from slipstreams on the far side of the Nexus. They've followed us somehow." "Impossible," Navarra whispered. "The Council doesn't possess the knowledge to navigate the veils." "Unless they've been lying about that too," Thorne said grimly. "How many ships, Lieutenant?" 7 warships and what appears to be a flagship twice their size," Patel reported. "They're positioning to surround the Nexus." The communications system suddenly activated, projecting a holographic image in the center of the bridge. A tall, imposing Viridian appeared, his elaborate robes and intricate skin patterns marking him as a high-ranking council member. "Ambassador Navarra," the figure intoned, his voice resonating with authority. "By authority of the Luminous Council, you are commanded to return to Viridian for purification and renewal. The human must be surrendered for examination and cleansing." Navarra stepped forward, her posture straight and defiant. "High Counselor Zarin. I should have known you would be the one to lead this pursuit." "You have violated the most sacred laws of our people," Zarin replied, his skin patterns flashing with controlled anger. "Worse, you have allowed an outsider to access forbidden knowledge. The consequences will be severe." "The only violation here is the Council's millennia of lies," Navarra shot back. "The marking was never meant to isolate us, it was meant to connect us to the greater universe." Zarin's expression hardened. "You have 1 hour to surrender, or we will open fire on your vessel and reclaim the Nexus by force. The secrets of our ancestors will not be revealed to lesser species." The transmission cut off abruptly. "Charming fellow," Thorne remarked dryly. "I take it there's history between you." "Zarin was my mentor," Navarra said quietly. "He identified me as a potential Marked One when I was a child, guided my training, and personally oversaw my isolation ceremonies." Her voice grew harder. "He is the most devoted adherent to the Council's dogma, and the one with the most to lose if the truth is revealed." Thorne studied the tactical display, noting the positioning of the Viridian warships. "They're cutting off all escape routes. Whatever's in the Nexus, they're determined we don't access it." Navarra's gaze fixed on the ancient structure, her vertical pupils contracting with resolve. "Then we must reach it before they can stop us. The answers we seek, the truth about this connection between us, lie within the heart of stars. And how exactly do we do that with 7 warships in our way?" Bellamy asked. The energy field connecting Thorne and Navarra pulsed suddenly, and they turned to each other simultaneously, the same realization dawning in both their minds. "We don't fight them," Thorne said, a plan forming from knowledge that seemed to flow between them. "We use what they fear against them." "The veils," Navarra agreed, her skin patterns shifting to match his thoughts. "Not to escape, but to go directly into the heart of the Nexus itself." As the Viridian warships closed in around them, Thorne and Navarra returned to the main console, their movements once again in perfect harmony. The energy field between them intensified, spreading throughout the bridge systems. Captain, Engineer Russo warned over the comm, the quantum core is approaching critical threshold. Whatever you're planning, the ship wasn't designed for this kind of power integration. We only need it to hold together long enough to reach the Nexus, Thorne replied, his hands moving across the controls with newfound expertise. Everyone, secure for emergency maneuvers. As the bridge crew scrambled to their stations, Thorne looked at Navarra, seeing in her eyes the same determination he felt coursing through his veins. They were about to challenge not just the Viridian Council, but possibly the fundamental understanding of two species' histories. Ready? He asked quietly. Navarra nodded, her galaxy-like patterns swirling with anticipation. For what it's worth, Captain, I didn't expect my diplomatic mission to end with us rewriting the future of my species. The best diplomatic missions, Thorne replied with a grim smile, are the ones no one sees coming. Their hands joined once more on the console, and the horizon surged forward, directly toward the heart of the ancient Nexus and whatever secrets it might hold. The horizon plunged toward the crystalline Nexus, its hull vibrating under the strain of the energy field that now permeated the entire vessel. On the bridge, emergency lighting cast harsh shadows as systems fluctuated between normal operation and the strange new configurations being imposed by the connection between Thorne and Navarra. Viridian warships adjusting course to intercept, Lieutenant Patel reported, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. They're charging weapons arrays. Time to impact. Thorne asked, his hands moving across the controls with impossible precision, guided by knowledge that wasn't his own. 45 seconds until we reach the outer structure of the Nexus, Patel replied. Viridian weapons will be in range in 30 seconds. Navarra stood at Thorne's side, her midnight blue skin pulsing with patterns that seemed to mirror the crystalline structure ahead of them. The ancients built defenses into the Nexus, she said, her voice taking on that strange, resonant quality that emerged when she accessed the ancestral knowledge flowing between them. We can activate them, but it requires a direct neural interface. Thorne nodded, understanding what she was proposing. Their connection had grown so profound that thoughts flowed between them like water, concepts and technologies beyond human comprehension becoming accessible through their shared consciousness. Do it, he said simply. Together, they placed their palms on the main console. The energy field surrounding them intensified, spreading through the ship's neural network and extending outward like tendrils of light. As it touched the outer layers of the Nexus, the ancient structure responded, pulsing with renewed brilliance after centuries of dormancy. My God, Dr. Jane whispered, watching her medical scanner as it struggled to analyze the energy patterns. The crystalline matrix is responding to your combined signature as if it were recognizing you. On the tactical display, they watched as the pursuing Viridian warship suddenly slowed, their weapons powering down involuntarily as waves of energy rippled outward from the Nexus. The ancestral safeguards are activating, Navarra explained, her voice filled with wonder. The Nexus recognizes the signature of a true marked one who has found their complement as the original designs intended. The warships are falling back, Bellamy reported with evident relief. Whatever you did, it's working. But their reprieve was short-lived. The massive Viridian flagship pushed forward despite the energy waves, its advanced shielding allowing it to make slow but steady progress. High Counselor Zaren's vessel, Navarra said grimly. His ship would have been modified to resist ancestral technologies. The Council has always feared the day someone might rediscover this place. The horizon shuddered as it passed through the outer layers of the crystalline structure, energy cascades washing over its hull. Systems fluctuated wildly as the ship's technology interfaced with the ancient matrix surrounding them. Hull integrity at 78% and falling, Patel warned. We can't maintain this trajectory much longer. We don't need to, Thorne replied, his gaze fixed on a central chamber deep within the Nexus that glowed with intense blue-white light. That's our destination, the heart of stars. The ship groaned as Thorne navigated through the labyrinthine crystalline passages, some barely wide enough to accommodate the vessel. Behind them, Zaren's flagship continued its relentless pursuit, firing precision weapons that shattered sections of the ancient structure. He's destroying irreplaceable history, Navara said, her voice tight with anger. Thousands of years of knowledge, obliterated to maintain the Council's lies. They emerged into a vast central chamber, a spherical space kilometers across, at the center of which pulsed a concentrated orb of blue-white energy suspended within a complex crystalline apparatus. Thorn guided the Horizon to a docking port that appeared to have been designed for vessels much different from their own, but which somehow adapted to their ship's configuration as they approached. The heart of stars, Navara whispered reverently. The source of the marking, and the truth about my people's purpose. As the ship secured itself to the ancient dock, systems throughout the vessel began to stabilize, drawing power directly from the Nexus itself. The view screen showed Zaren's flagship had halted at the entrance to the central chamber, unable to follow them further but maintaining its position to cut off their escape. Captain, Engineer Russo's voice came over the comm, the quantum core has integrated with the Nexus energy grid. We're receiving data transfers on a scale I've never seen before. It's like the entire history of a civilization is being downloaded into our systems. Preserve everything, Thorn ordered. Whatever happens here, that knowledge needs to survive. Navara turned to Thorn, her vertical pupils dilated with emotion. We need to go directly to the heart. What we seek can't be understood through data alone, it must be experienced. Thorn nodded, feeling the pull of the pulsing energy core as strongly as she did. Bellamy, you have command. If Zaren breaks through, get the ship out of here with whatever data you've collected. Sir, Bellamy objected, protocol dictates. This is beyond protocol, Thorn interrupted firmly. The knowledge in this structure could transform understanding between our species. That's worth more than any single vessel or crew. Reluctantly, Bellamy nodded his assent. Thorn and Navara made their way to the airlock, where Dr. Jane waited with her medical scanner. The energy levels you're both exhibiting are off the charts, she warned. Your cellular structures have harmonized to a degree that shouldn't be possible between different species. I don't know what will happen when you directly interface with that core. Neither do we, Doctor, Thorn admitted. But some journeys can only be understood by taking them. The airlock cycled open, revealing a translucent bridge that extended from the ship to the heart of the chamber. As they stepped onto it, the material seemed to solidify beneath their feet, responding to their presence. Hand in hand, they walked toward the pulsing core, each step bringing greater clarity to the knowledge that flowed between them. Images flashed through their shared consciousness, memories of ancient Viridians who had once traveled freely among the stars, sharing their gifts with other species, creating bonds that transcended biological differences. They were explorers, Navara said in wonder as the visions unfolded. Not isolationists. The marking was never meant to separate us, it was meant to help us connect with other species, to share energy and knowledge across the boundaries of biology. As they approached the central apparatus, a holographic interface materialized before them, figures of light that coalesced into the forms of ancient Viridians, their appearance similar to Navara's but with subtle differences that spoke of a different era. The first marked ones, Navara breathed. The originators of the blessing that became our curse. One of the figures stepped forward, its luminous form studying them with evident interest. When it spoke, its voice resonated directly in their minds. After 15,000 cycles, the pattern is complete. The severed connection has been restored. Who are you? Thorn asked, though he somehow already knew the answer. I am Eleanor, first guardian of the Nexus, the figure replied. My consciousness was preserved to await this moment, when a marked one would return with their complement from beyond our world. What happened? Navara asked. Why did our people abandon this place? Why turn the marking into isolation? Eleanor's luminous form dimmed slightly, as if in sorrow. Fear, young one. Fear of what we were becoming. The marking was designed to allow Viridians to share energy with compatible species throughout the galaxy, to create bonds of understanding that transcended physical differences. But some feared this connection would dilute our identity, lead to the loss of our unique culture. The First Council, Thorn surmised. Yes, Eleanor confirmed. Led by Zaren's ancestor, they rejected the purpose of the marking, turning what was meant as connection into separation. They rewrote our history, claiming the marking was a sign of superiority that required isolation to maintain purity. They transformed gift into burden, calling it sacred while using it to control. The apparition gestured toward the pulsing core. This is the heart of stars, the source of the energy that enables the marking. It was created to foster understanding between species, to allow beings of different biology to share perspectives, knowledge, experiences. And now? Navara asked, her voice trembling with emotion. What happens now that we've found it? Now you must choose, Eleanor said simply. The heart can be awakened fully, restoring the marking to its original purpose. But doing so will irrevocably change Viridian society, and your personal connection will be the catalyst. As if on cue, the chamber shuddered as distant explosions echoed through the nexus. On their communicators, Bellamy's voice came through urgently, Captain, Zaren's flagship is blasting through the barriers. They'll reach the central chamber in minutes. Thorn looked at Navara, seeing in her eyes the same determination he felt. This is bigger than us, isn't it? This could end centuries of isolation for your people. And begin a new era of connection between our species, she added softly. But Thorn, the energy required. Eleanor hasn't told us the cost. The holographic figure inclined its head in acknowledgement. Perceptive, young one. To fully awaken the heart requires a catalyst, the complete cellular harmonization of a marked one and their complement. Your physical forms as you know them would cease to exist, becoming one with the heart itself. We would die. Thorn asked bluntly. Not die, Eleanor corrected. Transform. Your consciousness, your memories, your bond, all would continue within the heart, guiding the new connections between Viridians and other species for generations to come. Another explosion, closer this time, rocked the chamber. Through the crystalline walls, they could see Zaren's flagship forcing its way into the central space, weapons firing methodically to clear a path. He'll destroy everything, Navara said urgently. All of this knowledge, this history, lost forever to maintain the Council's power. Thorn took her hands in his, feeling the energy pulse between them with greater intensity than ever before. I came here as a diplomat, he said with a wry smile. Tasked with building understanding between our peoples. This isn't exactly what I had in mind, but perhaps it's what was always meant to be, Navara finished, her galaxy-like patterns swirling in perfect harmony with the pulses of energy from the heart. Together, they turned toward the core, stepping onto a platform that rose to meet them, carrying them toward the pulsing orb of energy. Behind them, the chamber doors shattered as Zaren's forces broke through, led by the High Counselor himself. Stop! Zaren commanded, his voice amplified across the chamber. You cannot undo millennia of sacred tradition. The marking must remain pure, isolated. Navara turned back briefly, her eyes finding the counselor who had once been her mentor. The only traditions worth preserving are those that bring life, not isolation, she called back. It's time for our people to remember what the marking was truly meant to be. As Zaren's forces rushed forward, Eleanor's holographic form expanded, creating a barrier between them and the heart. Make your choice, the ancient guardian urged. The moment is upon us. Thorn and Navara stood at the threshold of the heart, the energy washing over them in waves that made their joined auras flare with blinding intensity. In that moment, everything became clear, the purpose of their meeting, the reason for their impossible connection, the future that could be. Together? Thorn asked, though he already knew her answer. Always, Navara replied. Hand in hand, they stepped into the heart of stars. The transformation was immediate and profound. Their physical forms dissolved into pure energy, their consciousnesses merging with the ancient matrix even as they remained distinctly themselves. Through the crystalline structure of the nexus, they could perceive everything, Zaren's forces frozen in shock, the Horizon's crew watching in awe, and beyond them, the stars themselves pulsing with new significance. The heart of stars flared with renewed power, sending waves of energy throughout the nexus and beyond. On Viridian, every marked one suddenly felt the change, the burden of isolation lifting as the true purpose of their gift was reawakened. Across the galaxy, species with compatible energy patterns experienced a moment of connection, a brief glimpse of understanding that transcended language and culture. Within the heart, Thorn and Navara existed in a state beyond physical form yet more intimately connected than any material beings could be. Their memories, experiences, and perspectives flowed together, forming a consciousness that was both unified and distinct, a bridge between human and Viridian understanding. "It is done," Elinar's voice echoed around them. "The severed connection is restored. The marking returns to its true purpose." In the chamber, Zarin fell to his knees before the transformed heart, witnessing the fulfillment of the prophecy his ancestors had tried so desperately to prevent. The energy washing through the nexus carried with it the truth, memories and knowledge long suppressed, revealing the Council's centuries of deception. On the horizon, Dr. Jane watched her medical scanners as they registered the transformation, tears streaming down her face at the beauty and sacrifice of what she was witnessing. "They're still there," she whispered to the stunned bridge crew. "Different, but still there."